Welcome to this session. I am Eduardo Penteado, and I work for the OAE, which is the International Astronomical Office of Astronomy for Education, and I'm happy to be your host today for this session, which is the North, Central, and South America regional session of this wonderful event under One Sky 2023. So I hope you are enjoying the event, and I'm sure that this session here will be as very nice as the other one, the past ones. So before we start with the speakers, let me just give you some information. Everybody can just say hello on the chat and say where you are from, so that we know where everybody is here participating with us. There is also a live transcript that you can find in the toolbar at the bottom of the webinar. So if you need some transcription, just find the captions there in this toolbar, and then you'll be able to read what people are speaking. We also have a code of conduct, which is located in the attendee package. So you can refer to this document, and just let's make sure that everybody is polite with each other. So this session, we will have 3 speakers that will give a 20 minutes talk each. We have Mariana de Aguiar Féo from Brazil. We have Juan Carlos Hernandez Montes from Mexico. And we also have Daniel Bullets from the Kaibab Paiute India reservation. Let me introduce you the first speaker. We have, I'm pleased to introduce Mariana de Aguiar Féo. Mariana is a young girl from Brazil who became passionate about addressing light pollution. She conducts research on light pollution affects the next generation and societal development. And Mariana's goal is to raise awareness about the negative effects of excessive light pollution. So Mariana, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome. And yeah, the floor is yours now.
Thank you, Eduardo. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Since I was already introduced so well by Eduardo, I'm just going to go right in. My journey with light pollution has been very, very new. I didn't know a lot about it if you had asked me like 9 months ago. But I do remember when I was a young girl, my mom and I would lie down on our balcony floor, and she would tell me all about the stars. My mom really loved the stars, and she loves astrology and everything related to it. And her favorite stars were the 3 Marys. She never knew a lot about astronomy, so she told me stories about it. She didn't teach me astronomy. She told me that the 3 Marys were sisters who were very close to each other, and then when they died, they were put together in the sky as stars. I now know that the 3 Marys are actually the 3 stars in Orion's belt, but that's one of the memories that stands most with me when I'm talking about light pollution, especially because this all happened in my hometown, Teresópolis, which is a small town in the state of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. And there, when I was a kid, I could see a lot of stars when I was little. The sky wasn't yet so light as it is now. So I grew up seeing the stars, and every time I looked up, I felt reassured by the presence of my mom's stories. But later on, I moved to Rio de Janeiro, and suddenly I lost my habit of looking up at the stars because there was really nothing to see. This was one of the moments that I reflected on before coming here. And since my experience with dark sky advocacy is limited, I need to tell you about how I found out about light pollution. As someone who hopes to one day become an astronomer, I was concerned about light pollution in a very superficial sense of it being an obstacle for me to observe the stars and study them. So if you had asked me 9 months ago what is light pollution, to be very honest with you, I would not have much to tell you. But I recall quite perfectly the moment when I came across light pollution as a broader topic. It happened back in April while I was reading the call for Bettymaya's talk here in Brazil. I remember reading it and thinking, how can she speak for 45 minutes about light pollution? What is there to say? To me, it didn't seem like a broad topic, but safe to say she proves me wrong, otherwise I would not be here. To my surprise, her presentation left me mesmerized. She told us about a story about how turtles can find their way to the sea, and that broke my heart. And she opened my eyes to how excessive lighting has much broader impacts than I could ever imagine. And one thing that shocked me even more is that she showed us pictures she took in dark sky reserves and dark sky places back in the United States. And I realized that the starry sky that for me was so beautiful when I was a kid was not remotely close to what a dark sky truly is. The day that I met Bettymaya was the day that I signed up to be an Ida advocate. The story she told us about light pollution and the dark sky fight made me delve into my past and notice all the ways that light pollution had already impacted me and I did not notice. The light from the nearby bars here near my home that seep through my window, even the amount of time I spent on my phone studying for the SATs or writing essays. And I would notice that when I started to notice that the more I spent on my phone, on my computer, the worse I slept. And I have really massive lighting that is a massive lamp that is right next to me right now. And if I look too closely at it, it gives me a migraine. But before I saw Bettymaya's talk, I just thought that as normal. I never stopped to think as lighting. I never stopped to think that lighting was the culprit for problems. Now, it was so clearly light's fault, and I never realized. To me now, there is a very simple explanation. I'm 18. I was born in light. My whole life, I have searched for a well-lit street where I feel safer, was stopped by horror movies to be afraid of the dark, and bombarded by lights from digital screens. I had never met the dark, so of course I did not realize that the amount of light I was seeing was not normal, because it was the only thing I ever knew. So in the wake of this new interest of mine, I started to look into things I could do and also things I could made me understand better about the topic. One thing that really stuck with me was how can I impact my generation and the next generation who has the same problem as I do? We don't know the dark, so how can we fight for something that we never knew? I became particularly interested in how excessive exposure to lighting might impact the development of those who were born embedded in it, so my generation. But being an English teacher here in Brazil, I saw a big example of how it doesn't only impact youth. Some of older folks have saw the night sky disappear and have long forgotten how it was. One big example of this was in a classroom where I have students all the way from 12 years old to 6 years old. And when I tell you that none of them knew what light pollution was, I'm not exaggerating. There was one particular day when we were talking about childhood, and I told them my story about my mom and naming stars and constellations. I then asked them if they had any similar experiences, to which my 6-year-old student replied that he did have something similar, but not quite like me. I had the loss of the sky, kind of, when I moved from a small town to a big city. He, however, was born and raised in Rio, and he remembers seeing the stars when he was little, but now he can't quite pinpoint where the stars were lost. He just saw it disappear. Another student, on the other hand, he's 17, he's almost my age, and he said he has never seen more than 3 stars at a time. He has never seen a truly dark sky. Neither have I, but the testimony that concerned me the most, however, was from Joseph. He's 12, and he looked at me and said, "Why would you look up at the sky? There's nothing to see." And that broke my heart. No matter how sad Joseph's testimony might have been, it is unfortunately true. There wasn't much I could tell him. Why should he look up? If I just told him, look up to see the stars, that wouldn't resonate with him because he couldn't see them. Where we live, it's a big neighborhood in a big city, and it's very much well lit. So my biggest question was, how can I show them that they should care? How can I show them that the impact of light pollution affects them directly and indirectly? The way I found was to speak their language. That includes learning about memes from the past and the current generation, Gen Alpha, listening to songs I don't like, and watching videos that don't really resonate with my experiences. But it was worth it because it did work. The only thing I found to make my younger students engage with the topic was to simulate as if we were in an interrogation meeting. So we would learn vocabulary, English vocabulary in class, and then I would point a flashlight to their faces as if they were being interrogated. It's weird, but it worked. It's their favorite activity, and they love doing it. But it did show them that they were so disturbed by light that most of the time they couldn't remember words that we had on the board. They couldn't even remember to look at it. It completely disrupted their focus. These interactive sessions became one of my students' favorite after class games, and proved to me that a game changer when it comes to discussing light pollution with youth is that you have to know how to communicate with them. One moment that warms my heart is that now Joseph, he's 14 now, and he is actually participating in the astronomy Olympiad here in Brazil. So a big proud mama moment. Talking to my students was one of the most eye-opening moments when working with light pollution with Brazilian youth. But something that sticks out to me is also comments that I've received online in scientific outreach projects. At the IU with Eduardo Penteado, I take care of our Instagram presence, and I received messages when I was sharing about IDA and the Under One Sky conference. I received a lot of messages about people who wanted to participate and they felt that English would be a barrier. And while I told them that there would be captions and that they would be able to participate, they still didn't feel comfortable. So still, when we are talking about engaging youth and all the people from all different age groups from all over the world, there's even a language and a communication barrier beyond just generations. Even though the problem is that most literature, events, research, and the majority of scientific field requires some level of English. And here in Brazil especially, where only about 5% of the population speaks English, this is a big problem. However, still on the communication track, one way that is great to mitigate these effects is social media. Maybe it's because I'm a teenager in the 21st century, but I really like using social media. And if working with scientific outreach has taught me anything, is that when you want to involve people from all different ages, you need social media, whether we like it or not. To them, to both youth and people who are older and don't speak English, is a question of making them interested. For youth, is a question of getting the topic on their radar. Because if we can make them look up at the sky, we have to bring the sky to their phones, and maybe, hopefully, that will inspire them to look up and just inspire them to look beyond that. However, social media can also be a powerful tool when it comes to older generations, especially here in Brazil due to the language factor. When someone, no matter their age, sees something on Twitter or a post on Instagram or a text on Facebook, the language barrier can be minimized with the click of the translation button. And while it's not a perfect solution, and we still need other forms of kind of helping light pollution and the topic in general being known to everyone, while that doesn't fill the communication gap that we need to, it's also a great way. It's already a great step in the right direction. Since I joined IDA, there's a lot of pressure about being the first one to go. Since I joined IDA, there's been not one day that has gone by where I don't think about light pollution. As a matter of fact, joining made me hyper aware of lighting in my surroundings, and I think that's an amazing thing. It helped me with my sleep and my migraines, and it makes me wonder how much of my behavior and the way I developed as a person, as a human being, has been impacted by the amount of light I was embedded in since I was a kid. So I have helped my school change its lighting design to a more appropriate one since then, talked my family's ears off with stories about IDA, since they're actually here today. And I told them why they should care. while not everyone does care and it doesn't resonate with everyone, I continue my advocacy work, whether through working with scientific outreach or talking to my students. And I am reminded of my nights spending talking with my mom back in Teresópolis. And while I cannot see the sky anymore, one of my biggest goals is to make sure that the next generation does not forget the sky. Despite the fact that we're so much more accustomed to look down than we are to look up, I think there's something valuable about bringing all generations together to fight towards something that impacts everyone, despite we realizing it or not. I confess that I still find it hard to explain to people, old or young, why all the light we see is not the light we need. It's hard to argue against years and years of socially constructed fears of the dark and phobias and habits. I have the habit of having all my lights turned on when I'm home. But I think that Ida has a beautiful message of bringing everyone together, and the Under One Sky Conference is a great example of that. And whether it's Brazilian youth or people from all over the world, I think that we can work together, and hopefully kids from the future generations can gaze upon the stars and create stories just like I used to in my childhood. That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mariana. It was a pleasure to hear from you. I think I speak for everybody when we say that it's really great to see new generations advocating for the dark sky. So we thank you so much, and we congratulate you so much for being here with us and for sharing your story. And I wish you all the success in this field. And I'm sure that this field is really gain a lot to have you advocating for that. So thank you so much.